Hi, I'm Eric with Simply Elegant Home Cooking. Today I'm going to share with you my recipe for Mexican chorizo breakfast hash. This is one of my favorite dishes. It's extremely versatile. I'm using chorizo today and Mexican spices, but you can really use any type of meat, any type of vegetables. You can make this Italian or however you like. So stick around and I'll show you my version. So to start this out, we're going to prep the chorizo. There's really not much to it. The chorizo comes in links like this, and you just want to cut into the casing. And once you've cut that open, you can peel it off. And you just want to take your hands and break it up. You don't have to be too thorough because you can always continue the process once it's in the pan. And once you've removed the chorizo from the casing, you want to take a saucepan like this, turn it on to medium heat. Allow that to come up to temperature, and I add just a very small amount of oil. You don't need much because there's a pretty good amount of oil in the chorizo. So we're just going to put that in there and swirl it around a bit. And now we can add in the chorizo. So what you want to do is you want to add that in and just kind of move it around a bit to coat it with the oil. And we're going to let this simmer away. While we let this cook down, we can prep the potatoes. So our chorizo is cooking away, and I did just want to show you the cut that I use. There's a very specific cut. So what I like to do is just cut off the very end piece. You don't have to peel it. And you want to cut them into very thin little discs, like so. And what you want to do, you want to take a couple of them at a time and just cut them into very small squares. And by making the cubes very small, it's going to really help us to get a nice crisp on these and to prevent them from overcooking in the pan. So you cut them into strips, and then you can just go the other direction. So I'm going to continue like that with the rest of the potatoes while the chorizo cooks away. And a few minutes later, the chorizo looks ready. You want to get some nice crisp on it. Don't be afraid of a little color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of the skillet, but we're going to reserve the oil. That's what we're going to use to saute the potatoes. So in that same skillet, with the oil and the heat still over medium, we can go ahead and add the potatoes in. Once they're in there, you just want to give them a good swirl to coat with the oil. And what you want to do, you want to spread them out in an even layer, and you want to let them sit for about 2 or 3 minutes between turns. That's going to help us get some crispiness and some color on them. If you turn them too much, you won't get that nice crispy texture to the potatoes. So the potatoes have been going for a few minutes. I should note with the seasoning, I like to do a little bit at a time as I go. I start with some salt and some pepper. So I'm going to put that in as I do my first turn. You can see we're getting a little bit of char on these potatoes. And the reason that I do a little bit as I go, you don't want the spices to burn up in the pan. Salt and pepper can withstand a little bit more heat, but this has to cook for quite a bit to get these potatoes nice and tender, and I don't want to burn some of the other herbs like the Mexican oregano and some of the other seasonings that I'm going to be adding. So we're going to let this go for a couple more minutes and we'll flip it again. These are now about 6 or 7 minutes in. I've turned them a few times. You can see they're getting some more color and some crispiness to them. We're going to let them go just a few more minutes before adding some of the vegetables. So these are now looking good. I've sampled a potato and it's nice and crispy, getting tender on the inside. So at this point we can add the vegetables. Now you can use pretty much whatever you want. I always like to use some type of an onion. This is a Vidalia onion, or about half of a Vidalia onion. You can use whatever type of onion you like. And I really like bell pepper. I'm going in with some red and some green bell pepper. Sometimes I will throw in cherry tomatoes, spinach, pretty much anything you have. Leftovers work. That's what makes this dish so good. It's very versatile. And I'm going to go in with a couple minced cloves of garlic. And now that all that's in there, you just want to give it a big stir to incorporate everything. And now that we've added all the vegetables, I'm going to go ahead and spice this up. I'm going to go in with a little bit of cumin, some paprika. You don't need to use too much because the chorizo has some paprika in it. Chili powder, and some Mexican oregano. And I'm going to give this a big stir again to incorporate everything. And what I do is I do just a little bit at a time. You can always add more, but you can't take those seasonings away. So start light. There's a lot of seasoning already just from the chorizo oil. So make sure that you don't over season. And similar to what we did when just the potatoes were in there, you want to let it go for like 2 or 3 minutes at a time. You don't want to be constantly turning it. It's going to help us get some crisp on those vegetables. So every couple of minutes you just want to kind of go and turn from the bottom up. And then just kind of make sure you're evened out on a nice even layer there. We're going to let it go for a few more minutes at a time. So a few minutes later, this is getting really close to being done. I'm going to add back in the chorizo. We're going to give everything a big stir again. And we just need to let that cook for just a few more moments to let those flavors mix. And this is just about done, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the heat. And I'm going to go in there with a very big handful of scallions. I've reserved a few to garnish, but I like to throw the majority in and just give this a big stir to mix them around. It's going to give it a little bit of spiciness and some freshness to the dish. And we're about ready to plate this up. And to plate this dish up just right, it is imperative to go on with a perfectly fried egg. And now my favorite part of every video, we get to dig in and give it a try. And in this dish, everything just works perfectly. The spiciness of the chorizo, the crispiness of the potatoes, the vegetables, everything turned out perfectly. This is a really great dish. Very easy to make. It's versatile. You can really add your own personal flair to it and do it however you like. I really hope you enjoyed. I'm Eric with Simply Elegant Home Cooking. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.